Welcome to Rossman Radio, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of entrepreneurs, founders, and e-commerce brands that are breaking through the noise and scaling like never before. I'm Elise, and Rossman Media is a trend-forward social media agency specializing in going viral and delivering 10x returns for the brands that we work with. Each week, I'll sit down with industry disruptors to talk about the highs, the lows, and the exact strategies that help them grow from their first sale to multi-million-dollar milestones. If you're ready to unlock what it really takes to win on social, build a community, and multiply your revenue, then you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Rossman Radio, the go-to podcast for entrepreneurs that are looking to harness the power of social media to build, scale, and amplify their brands. I'm one of your hosts, Elisa Saro, and today we're sitting down with BJ Ganem, an entrepreneur and founder of Sierra Delta. Sierra Delta is a wellness community centered around the service to others and the love of dogs. There's so much more to this brand that meets the eye, and we're going to dive into it all. So welcome. Hello. We've been chatting, so I'm very excited to get into this with everyone. And I want to definitely start off with what inspired you to start Sierra Delta. But if you could give the listeners a little background story of your why and just who you are.
Sure. I'm BJ Ganem. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. After my first year in college at Georgia Southern University, I was politely asked not to come back after posting a 1.3 GPA.
Wow.
All I wanted to do was just travel the world and fight as a rambunctious 20-year-old man. And the only people really advertising that was the United States Marine Corps. So on a whim, I joined the Marine Corps, became an infantryman, served from 1996 until I was injured in 2004 in Iraq, losing my leg below the knee to an IED, leaving 5 friends there. And when I got back, I went through all the stereotypical struggles that a lot of my fellow veterans have when returning and trying to figure out who we are after service. And one of the ways that I plunged forward and to figure this out was I went to school at the University of Southern California to become a master in social work with an emphasis on military life. Worked in the government for a while, was disenfranchised with how the government was delivering services, and started working in nonprofits, first with Simplify Fund and America's Fund. And eventually started my own nonprofit called Sierra Delta because I saw the power in dogs. When I had to my lowest point in 2006, going through a bad divorce, a bankruptcy, facing DUI charges, I thought about quitting life. Was just desperate. And when I was rationalizing everything away, my kids would be better, my family would be better, my friends would be better. I got to my dog at the time was Dozer, an old English bulldog. No special training, no special breeding. And I knew that if I quit on life, that dog would end up in a shelter and be euthanized like the other 800,000 healthy, trainable, and adoptable dogs we kill every year in this country. And that was enough for me to start putting one foot in front of the other and living what I call life on a good foot, whether it's my flesh and blood foot given me by God or the carbon fiber and steel given me by science. I was going to keep going knowing that I could handle whatever came my way. Just like that James Brown song, right? I got a funky job and I'm paying my bills on the good foot. Okay. And so from there, I just started Sierra Delta, focused more on ADA medical assistance service dogs. But after working with over 20,000 veterans, I realized it was beyond that, the power of these dogs, and that most of us still wanted to be of service in some capacity. And so born was the Sierra Delta nonprofit that helps all veterans access to dog training that best meets their needs and their lifestyle.
That's an incredible journey. And also, thank you so much for your service. I think it's incredible to have such a mission-driven nonprofit, but also just values that you have within this organization. And it's going to resonate with so many people. It already has. I'm sure that you've focused on and experienced even more entrepreneurial challenges than the physical and emotional challenges that you've already even mentioned. And I'm sort of wondering, did it become when you created Sierra Delta and you would have these like normal entrepreneurial challenges, did it seem like easy peasy compared to everything that you've been through?
No, In some ways, it was harder. You know, in the military, people often think that, oh, we want to thank you for your service. You did it all for us, and that's secondary. You know, primarily, I did it for me. I was trying to find a way to come up in this world. And then once you're a part of an organization, especially like the Marine Corps, it has a culture to it, which it almost seems like a cult. And when you're over there in war, you're more focused on the men, you know, and women. I only serve with men, but you know, to the people to your left and your right, and accomplishing the mission and making sure that we didn't do anything that made the situation worse. You know, so oftentimes I get asked, like, what's the bravest thing you saw in war? And it was after we had lost four of our friends and put two more on a helicopter where one eventually died later, was when we were in that hasty 360 collecting our friends, collecting the gear, pop shots were coming in. But yet we couldn't identify where they're coming from. And there was civilians running everywhere. They were just as scared as anybody else as a bomb went off in their neighborhood. And yet these men, these Marines, 19, 20, 20 something year olds, none of them shot back, even though their ROIs would allow them to, because they were more concerned about hurting an innocent person in Iraq than taking an injury on themselves.
Wow. I feel like this is all like the foundation of your natural story and your natural life and your natural path. Obviously resonates with people that have gone through it, have family members that have gone through it, or otherwise are just feeling that it
Yep.
really resonates with them. Do you feel like you incorporate a lot of your story into the way you market Sierra Delta? Like how much of that do you consistently put out there? I know you've been on several podcasts and you talk about it a little bit on social media, but how much of this is like incorporated into like the marketing and advertising for the business? Because I mean, gosh, like just listening to you, I feel like that's your selling point right there, and it's real.
Right. It's our core values at Sierra Delta spell EPIC. And it stands for empowerment, purpose, innovation, and community, with community being the most important. So everything is authentic in how I view my service, how I view the struggles. And so it's like anything. If you're not all in, no one else is going to believe it. If you're not living the brand. So in the Marine Corps, our motto is Semper Fidelis, which is Latin for always faithful. It's one thing to say Semper Fi. It's another thing to live it, to always be that. And that's what we're really trying to do with our veterans, is remind them that they have the power and the agency to overcome this. You don't need permission from the government. You don't need medicine. You need a community. And people might not understand what we did in the military, but I think with 68% of American households having a dog in it, and 35,000 years of humans and dogs working together for the betterment of those species, that is something where we can all come together. And then from there, build on how we can improve our relationships with each other. Because at the end of the day, if you see that somebody else has a dog and you see how cute that dog is and you see how much that dog loves that person, how much that person loves that dog, everything else can just wash away. So yeah, I'm all in. This isn't just something I'm selling to everybody. This is a life that I live, and I'm encouraging my fellow veterans to take up that same mantle. And I'm also encouraging the civilians that have a ton of gratitude for what we did to actually understand that if they want to help us, they can embody these same core values. And as a nation, we can get better.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I know when you and I were speaking, you mentioned that you founded, Sierra Delta. However, you have other people that are partnered in this with you. Do they have similar stories and similar backgrounds?
For sure, but it's also very diverse. I mean, that's the greatest thing about our veteran population, beyond the fact that they willingly raised their right hand to serve this country in ways and beyond war, humanitarian, or just doing all the other things that the military does. It's a matter of allowing them to speak open and honestly. One of the biggest struggles that we have, and what I think is actually driving the negative outcomes in the veteran community, most importantly, the suicide epidemic, is how we're delivering services to these men and women. we keep trying to save them. We keep trying to tell them, oh, we can fix you, or you've done enough, you don't need to do anymore. All those things reduce our dignity, reduce our value. And by listening and just allowing, that's what we do different at Sierra Delta. You've already done enough to receive our help by serving, but we're going to challenge you and we're going to hold you accountable to get a little bit better every day. And we think the best way to do that is to have a dog by your side. And if you're not going to do it for yourself, at least do it for that dog.
So how do you reach out to these veterans? Like, what do you guys do to get the word out there and to market the business?
So one of our best partners, and they have been from the very beginning, is Blue Buffalo Dog Food. It's the #1 dog selling dog food brand in the world. It was actually the founder and former CEO, Bill Bishop. He heard me talk. He heard me explain like what I thought we need to do differently in the veteran population. And he challenged me to start this organization and really got behind us. And so every year, Blue Buffalo holds a sales campaign at Walmart, the #1 retailing place in the world. It comes with commercials. It comes with branded displays in the store, all this stuff. And it also generates now $600,000 annually for us. And so it's twofold there, right? Because we give up to $3,500 in training grants to any vet that comes to us. We work with them to help put together a plan to find a trainer, train their own dog. If they don't have a dog, we help them understand how to better assess dogs in the shelters, connect them with shelters. Breeders that want to donate dogs, they can donate the image of the dog to our community, our digital community hosted by Circle. And as adults, they can make that transaction on their own, reducing the amount of cost, reducing the amount of just friction in this, and allow people to get going and working on what they need as individuals.
When you were going through the hard time, I believe it was 2004, did you say?
Yeah.
When you were going through divorce and bankruptcy, did you have kids at the time?
Did. Still
So
do.
you had kids at the time. Pardon me?
I still do. They're still alive.
Okay, great. So good to hear. And that is kind of a weird way to ask that question. Having kids myself, I'm like, what? But saying all of that, that's obviously a lot of pressure. And you mentioned that you were at your lowest point. Where did you find, I guess, the drive and motivation? Like, what habits did you lean on, or like where did you turn in that moment? Was it like a light bulb that went off and you were like, okay, Sierra Delta, I'm going to start this thing? Or like, what was that process like?
It was a progression. I've always been a very independent person from the moment of my birth. You can always ask anybody. I've always had trouble with authority. My high school quote was, rules are made to be followed, but to every rule there's an exception, and I am that exception. That doesn't mean that I don't feel that the rules don't apply to me. It just feels that people can't tell me what to do. I have to want to do it. And I see it in other people. You can't just tell other people what to do. More often than not, you're going to get them to do the exact opposite by being forceful. And at that lowest point, I really felt that everything else around me would be better if I wasn't here. And what that was just going through that depression, and in that desperate moment of feeling guilty that I survived, that I came back and others didn't. And I was struggling so much, I felt that it was my fault. When I started rationalizing everything away, like my kids would be better off without me, my family better off without me, my friends would be better off without me, work would be better off without me. I got to my dog, which was an old English bulldog with no special training, no special talents. In fact, Dozer, yeah. And his only talents really were getting slobber into places you thought was physically impossible to get slobber in, and clearing a room with his farts, right? He was my dog. He loved me unconditionally. He was the one that was never too busy for me, that I was always enough. And I knew that if I quit on life, and if I did that most desperate thing that so many people do and take my own life, that would leave him exposed. And then he would eventually end up in a shelter, and most likely euthanized, like the other 800,000 healthy, trainable, adoptable dogs in this country. And so that was enough for me to start putting one foot in front of the other and came up with this whole good foot mantra. I'm missing my left leg below the knee due to that IED. And so half of my steps are on a carbon fiber and steel foot, and the other half are on the flesh and blood foot. In that moment, I realized that it didn't matter, that I can still walk, I can still do. And eventually, having that mindset, it took about 10 years later, and really trying to not only solve my issues as a veteran, but trying to leave enough breadcrumbs behind me so that other veterans could pick up what I was doing. And what I noticed that we all leaned on, whether we served in Vietnam or whether we served in these most recent wars, was that most of us connected with a dog in some way. And that was the impetus to try to create a community and a system of support that allowed these men and women to come in and get the training that was specific to them to meet their own needs and their own lifestyle. So if you're an active person, you're going to want a more active dog. If you're not as active, you're going to want a dog that's going to be okay with being a little bit more sedentary, but we also want to challenge them to be a little bit better. And all dogs need exercise, and so do humans. And so that's when we looked at, all the different ways to train a dog for something, but running agility courses or hunting or shed hunting, mushroom hunting, dock diving, all these things, they all build off the same building block. There's nothing really special about a service dog other than how you are trained to communicate with your dog. And so by opening that up, we're able to help a lot more veterans. And then that empowerment that they feel by being an active participant in this, not just letting somebody else train your dog, but training it with a professional. And then from there, being able to train task yourself after training, still coming back with that trainer and checking in, that lifted you up. And what we noticed was, just like me, the rest of these veterans were looking for other challenges. They felt that they had the agency now to attack more. And so why not add service into that? They can bring their leadership back into their communities of whatever their choice is, and then help them move on and grow, whether it's just a little bit for a day or a little bit in a year. It doesn't matter how many times you fall down. It matters how many times you get up. And that's the great thing about dogs, right? You leave for 30 minutes and come back. It's like you were gone for 30 years. You leave for 30 years and come
I know.
and they come back, and they're just always just unconditional. I don't think it's an accident that if you spell dog backwards, it spells God.
Oh, I love that. I think that your mission, and it sounds like your real desire is to bring people that, not just like companionship, but that feeling that like gives them not so much like worth, but feeling like they're enough when they don't feel like it, and
Right.
being a resource for that and sharing something that has given that to you in your most time of need when you didn't think it was possible. And now you're reaching out to people that are maybe similarly in that dark moment and having those feelings, those thoughts, whatever it may be. And you're sharing what has helped you. And it doesn't look like a prescription. It doesn't look like what the government says you should do. It's purely something that you've developed that really just helps. And I think that's really cool that you are able to reach these people in these circumstances, especially our veterans. And I'm just so curious of what that process looks like. Like, how do you stay up to date and also consistently reaching out? Because a lot of veterans that are in these low states of mind, that are experiencing these, dark, deep thoughts, and just, whether it be PTSD or all of the many quote unquote stereotypical experiences that veterans have when they get back from war, like you were outlining, how do you reach out to them? How do you get in front of them? Because when they're in those states, they typically are kind of not really on social media or not really, reading their email. Like, what is your channel?
Empowering the other veterans. I mean, we've worked with over 5,000 veterans since 2017 when we were founded. We've issued over 800 professional training grants in that population. And my goal has always been to get to scale. When you add up all the groups that are saying they're helping veterans with dogs, it only equaled 1,000. There's 18 million vets in this country. 150,000 of that 18 million needs an ADA medical assistant trained dog. But the other, essentially 18 million veterans, could benefit from having a well-trained dog in their life. And so by finding the baseline, allowing the entry level to be you served, that's enough, right? And again, by figuring out, testing all these different ways to train a dog, like we failed more times than we succeeded. We've spent, way much more money than we're spending now. But when we would spend $20,000 and $30,000 a dog, $15,000 a dog, that dog would go to a controlled environment with professional trainers. It'll come out perfect. But as soon as they handed the dog to that person, it started to regress because no one was taking the time to work with the veteran. And then when we actually unpack what is driving that emptiness, that hole in these veterans, the majority of the time is that they're never going to be as important as they were when they wore that uniform. They're not going to have a team anymore. They're not going to be in charge of anything. And a lot of times they don't feel like they're in charge of their own lives. By helping them make that connection with the dog in a structured way, but in a way that allows for them to accomplish their goals and meet their needs and fit into their lifestyle. And by doing it that way, we can expand and allow more people and more dogs to come into this program and then celebrate what they did. And then by creating this digital community on Circle, right, they're sharing their stories. So once a week, if they're in training, if they're paying for training, they need to provide a video or a picture showcasing how it's working, how it's going. That builds habit. Now they're sharing it even after training. Or if the veteran comes in and feels that their dog is trained enough, or they don't need a professional to do it, they can just watch some videos. They can also share that. And then as we get more veterans coming in and more civilians seeing what we're doing, people are now, through exposure, their intuition kind of kicks in. That's a big part of the human psyche that we seem to ignore. We focus a lot on intellect and not so much on intuition. Dogs run their whole life off intuition, right? And so if we can tie into that, we can bring that more to the forefront. And then it just kind of happens. I mean, the human species is closer to knowing nothing than we are to knowing anything. And yet we have this huge ego that we know it all. We're so certain about the outcomes. And yet time and time again, we are wrong. So one of the biggest things I think we did at Sierra Delta and what I did in my own life was kill that ego and be more open to whatever was going to happen and understand that I had the power and the agency to direct it, to overcome those obstacles. And again, we all go through hard stuff. I know people are like, oh, I've never been through anything as hard as you have. Well, there's no way to compare that. And so if we can just focus on what's hard in our life, when we get through that suffering, which is every much as part of life as joy is, right? But anytime you've ever gone through something hard, by the time you got through it, when you look back, it didn't look as if it was that much of a big deal. And so we need to get rid of that comparison right from Jump Street, right? As they come in and say, hey, this is about you. And you have 80% of the resources you need already, just in your heart, in your mind, and in your soul. The other 20%, let's work together, source it, and build it around that.
I love that. And when you say that, it resonates so much, and I'm not even a veteran. I feel like your message, your values, your thought process, the way that you've built this brand off of like authenticity, it resonates with so many people. And what so many people, I mean, it's a human condition of what we go through. And whether it's a veteran, and of course, like you've niched down into a community that's so important and it's so needed. But what you say about how you handle these situations and face them, and also how you make no comparisons between your heart, because you're right. Like you only know what you know. And I think it's very powerful. And, from our perspective as obviously we have a very successful agency. We work with brands and businesses from all walks of life. And we really love to connect with cool brands that are making a difference in the world. And when we see brands like yours, and I'm sure you're like, don't call it a brand, but
No, I'm not. It is a brand. I built
it
it
is
to
a
be a
brand.
brand. Exactly.
You know, it's just so personal and so beautiful. And when we see brands like that, it's like, wow, there's so much that can be done here outside of course, like the Blue Buffalo stuff is incredible. It's a huge brand that you've got a connection with. But gosh, like it is like social media gold.
It really is. I mean, the
Um,
most searched things on Google is still dogs and cats. Like,
yeah.
we all know it. And that's where I built this brand to where it would be easy for other brands, because what we need is money. And I know that sounds gross, right? But I
No,
need enough
you
money.
doesn't sound
I
gross.
want to do, my goal is by 2030 to have 10,000 veterans annually in professional dog training. Based on the raw numbers, that means I would need to raise $350 million annually. The good news is that there's other nonprofits that are raising that much money annually every year. I didn't want to beg. I didn't want to pull the heartstrings. And this is what I tell the veterans all the time. Don't tell your worst stories. Tell your best stories. Tell people how you're overcoming this. And if we utilize that messaging and we include the dog as being a big part of that, it can attach to any other brand. So like Kane Footwear is about to start giving us 1% of what they do. And all these other brands, we've had people that do tailgates at these NFL games that they dedicate one tailgate a year. And some of these people are doing it for 3 years. And the biggest one is up in Green Bay, $47,000 they've raised in 3 years by throwing a tailgate, being purposeful about, hey, the money we're generating here is for Sierra Delta. This is what they do. A lot of times there's some of our veterans there showcasing so that people can talk to. It's all about connection and about being extremely transparent, which is why we're so hyper focused on the only grants we're giving out right now are for dog training up to $3,500. So we can get to scale. We are guaranteeing to do 300 this year alone. We've already done 20 in the month of January. By putting it on scale, people can then start to believe that we can get this done. And if we can get it done by just all the ways in which we shop already. Now you buy hair care products, and they're also given a percentage to Sierra Delta to not only help veterans, but to help reduce the amount of dogs that are in shelters wasting away. We don't buy dogs, right? There's plenty of good shelter dogs out there. We're developing a course under the service program is called, so the dog program is called Life Buddy. The service program is called Life Force. And so by having the ability for people to sign up and get some service hours to go into a shelter, play with the dogs, take some videos and some pictures, and by giving them a little bit of training on how to assess that dog, they can accurately report what's in those shelters. And then our final program is called Lifeblood. And that's where we're partnering with other brands, whether it's Blue Buffalo or whether it's Mutt's Bakery, a little mom and pop dog bakery. Everybody can kind of come in and pitch in where they can. And then by having this money available and tying it into products, it raises all ships because it's an easy brand to get behind, especially in the world that we live in that is super contentious right now. Everybody loves dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Most everybody wants to support veterans. So let's make it easy for that to happen and let's get a win. When was the last time we had a true win in this country? It's been too long. And I think this is an easy one. And again, I don't think I'm a genius. I picked, the two things that most everybody agrees on and just made it to where it was easier to market based on the strength of these individuals instead of on what happened to them and where they're missing. And that's the big difference, I think.
I love it. What's like, before I let you go, what is one, okay, let me back up. What would you say to the veteran that just got back, is feeling very similar to how you were feeling in 2004? Maybe they don't understand how to integrate back into society, how to put one foot in front of the other. And they're just feeling a little lost and not knowing what resources are out there. What would you say to them?
Real short to be improvise, adapt, and overcome, just like we were taught. I know it's scary. You no longer have that unit. You no longer have that team. You don't have that staff NCO that you can go to and help get that worked out. But they all still exist in this country, and there's plenty of other people that want to help, and they don't know how to help. So join a nonprofit, search them, look at them. When I look at Sierra Delta, I try to make it as simple as possible for these men and women to join Sierra Delta. We have ID.me integrated into our website. So if you want to join the community, you're not having to write up, how broken you are. You're not having to write up how disabled you are or what's your VA rating. You literally you come in, ID.me verifies you, you are in. You are then asked to build a profile so that we kind of know where you're at, a little bit about you. Give us a brief bio, and then what your goals are with the dog or what your goals are within Sierra Delta. And then you come in and you take some courses on what's available. You meet with myself, and we're working on right now developing the community team leader course to train other veterans that have been through the process that are in a better place, but they want to give back. Let's give them the peer-to-peer mentor training that they need, a little bit about project management, all that stuff. And then we can all work together. No different than what we did in the military. We're just not doing it in a regimented way. We are doing it to improve ourselves, our communities, and our nation from within. So get out there and join either Sierra Delta or the other 70,000 veteran-centric nonprofits that are out there, but get involved in some way, somehow, even if it is just volunteering at your local schools, any of these things, that it's all possible. And I think a good place to start, obviously I'm biased, is join up with Sierra Delta, and then we'll see where we go from there.
I love it. Thank you so much, BJ. Your story is incredible and your energy is awesome. And I know that everyone's going to be so excited listening to this. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope that it reaches who it's supposed to.
Thank you for helping. This is how we're going to get it done. It's just people lending us their platform so we can share what we're about. And thank you for just letting me speak from my heart and open this up to your audience.
You're so welcome.
Perfect.